The world had fallen into chaos. What once was a bustling city filled with the hum of life now lay silent, its streets empty and desolate. The only sound that could be heard was the distant moan of the undead, their hollow cries echoing through the ruins. The air was thick with the scent of decay, a constant reminder of the life that had been lost. Sarah tightened her grip on the baseball bat, her knuckles turning white. She had found it in the wreckage of a sports store, its once shiny surface now battered and stained with the evidence of her survival. Beside her, Jack scanned the horizon, his eyes sharp and vigilant. The bond they shared had grown unbreakable through their shared ordeal, each relying on the other for strength and hope. "Do you think we'll make it to the safe zone?" Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper. It was the same question she had asked 100 times before, but the answer always seemed to change with the day's events. Jack glanced at her, a flicker of warmth in his otherwise hardened gaze. "We have to believe we will," he said, his voice steady. "It's what keeps us going." Their journey had begun weeks ago when the first reports of the outbreak had spread like wildfire. Panic had set in quickly, and the city had descended into anarchy. Sarah and Jack had been among the lucky few to escape the initial wave, finding refuge in a small, abandoned house on the outskirts of town. They had survived by scavenging for food and water, always moving, always wary. But now supplies were running low, and the zombies were becoming more aggressive, their senses seemingly more acute. The safe zone was their last hope, a place rumored to be fortified and free of the infection. It was a long shot, but it was all they had. As they made their way through the abandoned streets, the weight of their journey pressed down on them. Every corner they turned held the potential for danger, every shadow a possible threat. They moved in silence, communicating with gestures and glances, their senses on high alert. The sound of shuffling feet and low growls reached their ears, and they froze. A group of zombies emerged from a nearby alley, their lifeless eyes scanning the area. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, and she could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She looked at Jack, who nodded silently, signaling for her to stay calm. They waited, barely daring to breathe, as the zombies shuffled past them, oblivious to their presence. When the last one had disappeared around the corner, they continued on, their movements even more cautious than before. Hours passed, and the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the deserted landscape. Exhaustion weighed heavily on them, but they knew they couldn't stop. Not yet. They reached a small, dilapidated building that had once been a cafe and decided to take a brief respite. Inside, the air was stale and filled with the scent of old coffee. Sarah slumped against the wall, her body aching from the constant tension. Jack sat beside her, his arm brushing against hers. In that moment of quiet, they found a small measure of comfort in each other's presence. "Do you remember our first date?" Sarah asked, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "We came to a place just like this." Jack chuckled softly, the sound a rare break from the grim reality. "Yeah, I remember. You spilled coffee all over yourself, and I thought it was the funniest thing." Sarah laughed, a genuine sound that seemed out of place in the midst of their nightmare. "I was so embarrassed, but you made me feel like it was okay." They sat in silence for a while, lost in memories of a world that no longer existed. As the darkness grew, they knew it was time to move again. The safe zone was still miles away, and there was no guarantee they would make it. But they had each other, and that was enough. With renewed determination, they stepped back into the night, their hearts pounding with both fear and hope. They would survive this nightmare together.